We have a very special guest today. We're very lucky because I think we have one of the wisest and one of the smartest business leaders from the region here to share some of his insights with us. It's a very interesting time in the luxury sector. So Patrick Chalhoub, I'm so happy to have this opportunity to spend some time with you. I want to cover, first of all, your understanding of what's happening in the market, because it's a very dynamic moment in the luxury market. Then I want to get into some of the insights on how consumer behavior is changing. Then I'd like to look at your longer-term vision for the Chalhoub Group, and of course get some advice from you for everyone here. But let's start with the market. I'm lucky to travel all around the world, and whenever I travel in Europe or North America at the moment, people are pretty downbeat. There's not a lot of optimism, but here in the GCC, the energy is palpable. The market is still growing. Why? Explain to us what the drivers are that make this market stand out in this current time of turmoil in the wider luxury industry.
So first, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you on stage. I'm very glad to be in Kuwait. Kuwait has been really a birthplace for us, for our group, in order to be able to develop in our business and to make it and to grow it up. So it's very much dear to my heart to be here. And thank you for being here. Going to the market, and you are probably one of the biggest specialists about the fashion and the luxury market into the world. I will start perhaps by giving a global image, and then I will focus more on our part of the world and on the GCC. So I would say luxury has been extremely attractive. As Elisab have said it, it's a dream which could be fulfilled when we access to luxury, be it in fashion or beauty or gift items. And we have seen customers from all over the world really moving into the luxury world, from America to Europe to China to the Middle East. And it has been quite a steady growth, which we have seen with few accidents in between. 2020 have been COVID, and during COVID year, like any other industry, everything went down. But after COVID, in 21, 22, 23, there has been a kind of revenge buying, a kind of appetite in order to consume even more, a kind of, after being deprived from accessing luxury and putting some money aside during those years, much more spending into doing it. So if we look at the luxury globally from 2019, including to 2024, which has been a tougher year, and 25 as well, the growth has been quite substantial. It has continued to be 3 or 4% into the world. But during the past 2 years, so 24, 25, there has been some disaffection from consumers for luxury. One, because there has been a kind of saturation. Two, that there has been some of the areas of the world, particularly China, but even the wars in Europe with Russia or other places where they have had their own difficulty, and it was an area of growth. Three, probably luxury, having had so much success after COVID, have been a little bit lazy, increasing prices perhaps by increasing quality as well, but increasing prices perhaps by becoming not enough accessible for some of the customers who wanted to do it or to do it again, by lacking perhaps of the creativity and the innovation which we could expect, because the demand was so high that it has put us all in a certain comfort zone. So I think that in those moments, it's always a wake-up call. And personally, and again, I'm not the best expert in the world, very optimistic about the future of luxury. I don't think we will stop dreaming. Again, like Eli was saying it, I don't think that people will not be tempted by luxury, but also we have more and more to adapt to the way our consumers are thinking, are behaving, what is their drive, innovating, creating, being reasonable, giving value for our money. Now, I'm not here to give a lesson. I'll focus on the GCC part into it. I mean, into the GCC, we have probably a different spectrum. And I would say 4 or 5 points. The first one, we have leaders who have foresight, thinking that it's very important to have an economical development into this part of the world, to diversify our economies, and I hope Kuwait will even accelerate this movement of diversification, but which means also a lot of investment, which means a lot of money circulation, of business which is developing. So we are in an environment which is quite dynamic in spite of the hiccup or down of the oil prices. Then we have built an infrastructure which really is fantastic. When we go and visit some of the malls, including 360 here or the avenues or some of the malls in the rest of the region, it's quite at a very much better than many other international places into the world, better than high street shopping which you could find. So the infrastructure is quite well. Brands and ourselves have invested quite heavily, so the experience is quite nice for our customer. Then we have a customer who is, I would say, probably our customer was more into having access to luxury to show their status. But in time, we have a customer who is more and more understanding what is the intrinsic value of the luxury products. The quality of the product, the craftsmanship, the fact of having a point of differentiation, the creativity which is being there. So much more keen to move into the luxury world and consuming it more for themselves and for their pleasure. Then quite optimistic. So when we make, I would say, and we make yearly surveys to see what is the sentiment, and not only us, but you too, you are making some of those. And the sentiment of the customer in the Middle East is, in the GCC, is quite positive. They are ready to consume and consume more. They think that the future is better than it has been. So a very much more positive than in other parts of the world, even if we have certain political instability in other parts of the Middle East. But then we have youth, and we forget about this youth. A market like the GCC, where you have such a youth, such an energy, such people who are willing to see the world in a different place and wants to improve their quality of life and their part of it. It's a fantastic, I would say, place in order to be able to develop it. And then we have all this development of the digital part of it, which is very, I would say, convenient, but which is very well made. When I was in London, I was with you in London, and I ordered something to one of those sites. They promised me in 3 days. I was there for 5. I never received it. When I order it in Kuwait or in Dubai, I have it in 2 hours, which is fantastic way of doing it to be able to attract. So a lot of different elements which make it still a gross area. So even in 24, 25, while globally luxury was flat, -1, -2, +1, +2, in this part of the world, we were at +6. Probably this year we will be at +8. So it's one of the only places in the world where luxury during these 2 years have had this gross pattern which have continued and hopefully will continue.
And Patrick, thank you for laying that all out, because it's very clear that there's a specific set of growth drivers in this market which are linked to demographics, linked to digital transformation, linked to infrastructure, linked to long-term vision. As you think forward, is this growth that we're seeing +6%, +8% annually, is that sustainable growth over the medium to long term?
I mean, it is very difficult to predict the unpredictable. But today, the pattern which is happening for the coming years globally is an improvement of the GDP and hopefully the personal income of people, which is perhaps helping quite a lot. Then, and which I forgot in my resume, there is this drive of tourism. I mean, this part of the world hasn't been a touristic place. And probably we have had more business tourism, religious tourism, or than any other tourism. So we became quite attractive for tourists coming from all over the world, which are expanding, and hopefully we'll see more of them in a market like Kuwait, like we are seeing in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, but even today in Riyadh or even in Doha. So this drive of tourism is attracting tourism, but also attracting some wealthy resident coming from all over the world to come and establish in this part of the world. So in the foreseeable future, I see that the drive will be there, but we have also to deal it with, I would say, attention. We have customers who are more and more knowledgeable, more and more informed, more and more connected, traveling quite a lot. So we really need to make sure that the offering which we are giving to our customer is outstanding. Outstanding in terms of the experience we give, and standing in the term of the service. How are we going to wow them? How can we be reasonable in our pricing to be competitive and even more competitive? How can we create this journey which is quite unbelievable, because they could have access to it everywhere in the world. So it's important for me. I'm quite optimistic, but it will require really that at all levels we continue doing a much better job than we have done up till now.
Let's double click on customers for a second, because one of the things that you mentioned as one of the industry issues, the laziness around price increases without commensurate increase in design or quality or creativity. You know, the customer here, as you say, you know, it's a smarter customer now. You know, we sometimes underestimate the discernment of customers in markets like this, because we think it's just about status and logos, but that's not the case anymore, as you pointed out. So how are customers here reacting to these extraordinary price increases that the brands have put in place? And what do you think, you know, if you're advising some of your partners in Europe, you know, at LVMH or some of these other big luxury conglomerates, like what would you advise them to do on this pricing question?
So 2 points. The first one, I think that we have part of our customers who are quite wealthy customers. And for those wealthy customers, the most important element which we have to give is, again, which experience, which quality of service, which connection, which personalization which we could give. How can we make sure that we work with them? And probably the pricing part is less of the concern. Of course, it has to be competitive with other places on the world for them if we are giving them the whole element. And I think luxury brands, including ourselves as their partners, have put a lot of attention to those customers. Now, when we see globally the luxury market, and you know the figure better than me, but in 23 we had 300 million customers all over the world. In 25 we have only 250 million customers all over the world for nearly the same turnover, which means much less customers have consumed more and at more expensive prices in order to be able to do it. And we probably have serviced them quite well, and they are sophisticated, and we have really improved quite a lot of offering. But we are not getting some of the new customer, some of the younger generation, or perhaps a middle class or wealthy people who could afford doing it, but who are more regarded. So I think that there is a shift today to say, yes, we have to take care of our net high worth individuals, but also we have to make sure that we are quite attractive to be able to attract some of the new customers by creativity, by the pricing which we are going to do, but also more than the pricing, making sure that what we give has the right value, irrelevant of the prices, but really have the product for money. And this is what we are really trying to be vocal with our partners, is that it's important not to reduce the quality, not to reduce the offer, but to increase the creativity, the innovation, the surprise part of it, maintaining the experience, but be able to have a bigger spectrum in order to be able to be attractive at an entry price and to be extremely sophisticated and even more at a higher level in terms of the pricing. But I repeat it, I mean, when you consume any soft drink, we buy it at a grocery, not at the same price that we buy it at the hotel next to us. But the experience can make a lot of difference if we give also the right experience and service.
I'm curious, we've just come from a fashion month where we had a number of new creative directors debut at a number of big brands, and you noted also that the creativity, the kind of energy around design in the industry has also been waning. I mean, do you sense that customers are excited about what they've seen coming out of Milan and Paris in this recent season?
So, to your point, out of the 20 biggest brands, 10 have changed designer into the past 6 months or 1 year. And I would say perhaps the movement have been too fast and too big for many places. We see some skepticism with our customer because sometimes they are not finding the codes which they would like to see in a brand, but we see into the execution a more gradual execution. So the initial feedback which we get was very positive. Skepticism, but then very positive because we felt that people are engaging with something which was different than what they had seen before and which was an evolution. We felt more attractiveness for a younger customer, which is quite interesting. But some of them will succeed and some will not. I mean, but the movement has been there quite aggressively, but has been there. And I think it's important also there is a new generation who comes, and it's not only musical chairs where people turn around from a brand and a brand, and we are seeing some new blood coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point because a lot of, Tim Blanks, my colleague at BOF, I mean, one of his biggest observations coming out of this season was, yes, we saw a lot of new designers debuting at new brands, but they weren't new designers. A lot of these designers had been around for a very long time. One of the designers that felt really fresh and new was Dario Vitale at Versace, and like you were saying, I mean, I was lucky to be at that show, and that show was amazing, but it was such a radical change from the previous Versace. So I agree that part of the challenge will be to bring customers along with the journey, longtime customers of Versace or Valentino or these other brands, and helping them to understand the new direction.
Yeah, but having said that, we have seen both things. We have seen some of the designers who took a radical change for a good or not a good reason, and we have seen some of the designers who tried to understand what the brands were about and to build in it in a different way. We have seen both ways. And there is no right and wrong. There is the fact that when you make a radical change, you lose some of your customer, and hopefully you would gain others and more. When you have a certain continuity, if there is no innovation, you would continue losing. And when you have it with innovation, then you will gradually get this new customer into it. But it's an interesting time. And personally, I loved it. I loved to see every of those new shows which were into it, but also those are in continuity, because it doesn't mean that the others are not good. They are very relevant and very good, but we just need to reassess ourselves. But it's true even in our business. I mean, we all the time reassess what value are we giving to our customer, what value are we giving to our partners, how can we give an additional or different value. And if we don't give this value, we will be sidelined by our customer or by our partners.
So let's go deeper into the customer group here that you are referencing, which is this young, digitally enabled customer. When you look at the GCC countries, these customers are shaping not just the future of luxury in this region, but they're very, very important to the luxury industry globally, given all of the growth dynamics that we see here. What have you learned about these customers? How are they different from their parents, and the customers that came before them? Like, what are they looking for now that's perhaps changing?
I mean, the first point, they are much more assertive. They know what they are speaking about. They know what they would like to see. So they are very much, and they are open also to understand much more. So they are perhaps less taken by the ideal image of a person who is dressed the same way, etc. It's more portraying their own identity, which is fantastic because they have a point of view, but it means they have much higher expectation than anyone else. Then I would say they are very keen to make sure that there is element of differentiation, but element where we could recognize what they are having. Unlike, I would say, just having the codes which recognize what you are wearing or consuming, here they want both. They want this personalization, individualization, and at the same time have certain codes which reconfirm them into their venue. Then they make a lot of mix and match. So they are loyal, usually they remain with their loyalty, but not only loyal for one brand or one series, they are somehow trying to match and mix between the different elements which are there. Then their area of influence. I mean, it didn't change much because the area of influence previously was family and friends, the biggest area of influence. Today, it's still family and friends, but the social network made that their friends are much wider, even if they don't know them personally, who are their biggest influence into doing it. So it's more, I would say, this referral of a bigger crowd of family and friends, which inspire them more than only leaders of opinion, which would inspire them. And also they are, I would say, more looking to make sure that they have a value for what they buy. Not necessarily, at least in our part of the world, not buying expensive, but they want to make sure that what they buy has the value which they are paying for. So the quality which is there and all the different elements which give this value.
So when you're sitting down with the luxury leaders in Europe, what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding or misconception that these, men in Europe have, mostly men, have about the customer here?
Yeah, it's mostly men. No, I mean, the biggest mistake which was made, but it's really changing, is that assume that the customer is loyal to their brand and loyal to the image they portray, and not enough taking attention to the personality of those customers. One thing which I forgot to speak about the new customer is really to have some local flavor within the way they dress, which they did, the way they consume, which could be either a local design, which are better and better, or mixing with some of the local design, or the way you are portraying it to it. So the misconception comes really by understanding that the customer is by himself having his own identity and not only captured by the effect of the brand, even if he is extremely interested by the brand itself. And the other part of it is sometimes this perception that the customer from the GCC is ready to pay any price for any product, and that they don't perhaps have tendency also to be able to compare and to have the real price which will be there. But interesting time. Having said that, there is more and more attention to our part of the world, as I said it earlier.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're following the growth, right? Where's the opportunity for growth? So the customer here is more value conscious than perhaps people in the West understand. The customer here is looking for elements of personalization. Do you think that the customer here will also be trying to engage more with brands from this region, and that there could be a situation at some stage where you have, fully fledged luxury fashion brands from the GCC that start to, develop at an important scale?
The answer is definitely yes, and I really hope, and we would totally encourage it. The example of Saab, whom we have seen, even if he is not, he's from Lebanon and not necessarily from the GCC, but he is part of the region, has been a fantastic example that yes, it could happen, and it happened, and it is very successful. It could be very successful. And I'm sure that we will see more of those brands developing locally, regionally, or internationally. And I think we have a duty to try to engage them, but not necessarily keeping them aside, keeping them within the rest of the fashion world, within the rest of the representation. And we have, honestly, fantastic creative designers who are there, which will learn with patience and with persistence that they will be able to develop, and few of them will make it without any doubt. Then it's a question of collaboration. How can we make a collaboration between some of the international brands, some of the local designer, or some of the local aspects which is becoming more and more happening, where you create this kind of collaboration in order to make sure that you encompass part of it, be it on the design aspects or be it into the product itself, where you could have it. And we see it with some of those special collections which we do, the brands do for Ramadan, like the kaftans, like the abaya, where there is at the same time the reflection of the brand, but also an adaptation for the region, and also some collaboration which are happening.
So we've covered the market dynamics globally, the kind of regional market, and its, continued growth. We've understood a bit about the customers in the region and how that's shifting. I'd like to turn now to the Chalhoub Group. I mean, you've been in you and I had dinner, sat next to each other at dinner in the UK recently, and we had such an interesting exchange about succession planning and thinking about the future of this company that you've been working hard at for more than 3 decades. So now that you've stepped back into this executive chairman role, you have a bit more. You told me you have more time to think. You have more time to reflect. Paint us a picture of this. You call it Vision 2033, of this kind of where you see the Chalhoub Group going from here. It's already been established as one of the most respected and successful organizations in the luxury industry in this part of the world. But where do you take this organization next?
So to go back a little bit to history, for those who don't know us, we turned 70 this year, 70 years for the group. We are moving from a second generation, which I represent, to the third generation, with my children and my nephew and niece moving to the third generation. And it's quite glorifying to be able to maintain a family business and develop it. I think a constant which we have always done is making sure that we portray our values, that we portray a certain way of doing the business, but we continue reassessing and evolving all the time. And we looking forward and not looking backwards, but making this space from on which we build in order to be able to look forward. And I think it's quite important for us. So the group has developed into many different ways of doing business, being agent of some of the brand, being the franchisee or distributor for the brands, being partner with the brand themselves, being partly owners of the brand, every time adapting to the environment and to the needs of the market and of our partners. Looking forward in the coming 10 years, where our executive committee, which has been quite renewed, and my son Michael, but also my other son and nephew and niece have been quite involved, is to figure out, which we do every few years, what Chalhoub will be in 2033. It's something which we wanted to do in 2020 for 2030, but COVID stopped us, so we delayed it of 3 years. And honestly, what we are seeing today is that what we would like to do, first, to make sure that our core business, we continue developing it in a market which is evolving very positively. It's not the time where we are going to move them out of the market, but on the contrary, to double down on our investment into this part of the world. To double down, trying to give value to our existing partners or create a new partnership with upcoming brands or companies, or those who are perhaps not represented sufficiently. I would say it's an important part of it and expectation, but also, I mean, finish the time where we were offering the plug and play. We put accounting and administration and HR. Today, perhaps the need of our customer, our partner, is looking forward, is how can we know better our customer, how can we please them. The empowerment move from our brand partner to our customer themselves about it. How are we going to give all those different services which is there? So this is something where has to maintain and increase our focus, talent, development of our people. Now, at the same time, I would say we are looking at a few different possible evolution. One of them is to be able to develop some other category of product category, where we haven't been enough strong up till now, be it in the jewelry business, be it into the eyeglasses and the glasses industry, or more into the home products, and continue the development in terms of category, which will complete our customer. Also into the way of doing it by creating more concepts which are intriguing for our customer. Also, certain development which would be for our own concept to go further than our region of the world. We created a few concepts which has been quite successful, and we think that we could bring some of those concepts in other territory. We have an ambitious plan to bring one of our more successful concepts, which is level the most exciting shoe store in the world, in my opinion. Our next step will be to open it in Miami in 2027. We already have moved in our digital part in the States, and some of the other, we moved our perfumeries to Colombia, to Chile in a very successful place. So to move our own concept and to continue to develop them, but outside the Middle East. Tanagra, which is a concept born in Kuwait in 1979, which we are also trying to develop, including into the West. And then perhaps move in some other territories, keeping the focus on the GCC, I repeat it, other territories, be it neighbor territories, as Iraq, where we were present, we were absent, as hopefully one day Iran, if it open up to a freer trade, or in countries where we think we can bring value to the partner, to customers who are not well serviced, and to our partners. So we opened now 7-8 years ago some activity in Latin America, in Chile, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Peru, which has been now quite successful and recognized. We probably become one of the leaders, if not the leader, into the luxury. We open in few countries in Africa, but it's more putting the seeds for the future in order to be able to develop it. So doing it with intelligence, but also every time penetrating a market. It's not just come and put a flag, it's come in order to penetrate the market. So more international development with our own concept and some of the territory. And finally, be more actively involved with some of our partner brands or new upcoming brands into supporting by investing into them and giving them perhaps part of our know-how in what we know how to do in order to develop them. So be more actively involved into, I wouldn't say necessarily brand owning, but investing into the brand themselves, but always with this idea, what value can we give them, what value they can give us, and how we can take them further. So a big program for Michael.
That's
and
a lot for
colleagues.
I mean, it strikes me that maybe if the first generation was about establishing the business and building the expertise, and the second generation was about solidifying the presence here in the GCC, the third generation is really about moving further, up the value chain, taking investment stakes or ownership stakes in businesses, but also really taking your expertise and applying it on a global scale, which is really interesting. So we're here in Kuwait. When just now you were telling me Kuwait holds a special place in your heart, and it was home to your parents.
And to me for 10 years.
And you lived here for 10 years. How does Kuwait fit into this strategy for you?
So when we established in Kuwait, my parents established their headquarters here in 75. We were present since 67, and then we established our headquarters in 75. The luxury market was not very developed here. And probably our family, along with our partners, the Habshi family, have been able to bring some of this luxury flavor into Kuwait as a first point of entry into the Middle East. And we have, some exceptional stories. So when we opened Tanagra in 1979, every time a head of state, including the French president, the Spanish king, and some of the other people coming from all over the world, were brought to Tanagra to see what could be happening in Kuwait, which was a kind of national pride, even if it was portraying. It was the first merchant gallery of luxury into this part of the world. When we started franchising in partnership with some of our partners, and in '82 we signed with Louis Vuitton, which wasn't the Vuitton of today. The owner of Vuitton, which wasn't Mr. Arnaud at that time, Mr. Rakamieh, told my father, "It's a very sad day for me today." And my father asked, "But why is it a sad day? We are signing to open a store in Kuwait," so the first one into the region, and they were very little present all over the world. He said, "Because I have a lot of Kuwaiti customers whom I love, and I'm not going to see them in Avenue Marceau where he had the shop anymore. So it's sad that I will lose my customer." But a year later, he met my father, and I was with him, and he told them, "I made a mistake. Since we opened in Kuwait, I have never seen so much Kuwaiti customer coming to me." But all of this to say that Kuwait has been probably the first market into the GCC, thanks to customers who were perhaps more evolved than in other countries, where luxury penetrated, where brand penetrated, and for 10 years it has been really the highlight for the region. Unfortunately, with the Iraqi invasion, with the rethought about Kuwait and the future, and perhaps a more aggressively positive aggressiveness of the neighboring cities and countries, Kuwait didn't go back because the customer is still very sophisticated and very knowledgeable and much more. The Kuwaiti women, with all respect to the men, are extremely sophisticated, extremely knowledgeable, but hasn't evolved as a market, at least for luxury, as we would have liked it. Of course, we have had few new malls. 360 and Avenue are part of them, but hasn't evolved the way perhaps other cities has evolved. But we have a lot of hope that it will continue to evolve because the Kuwaiti customer is a very strong customer and much more assertive than other places.
Before we conclude, I want to talk to you a little bit about the topic that's on everyone's mind, not just in the fashion world, but in anyone running a business anywhere, which is around artificial intelligence. I don't think I can recall another time in recent memory where there was such a disruptive technology that came on the scene. Probably the last time, was when we first had the internet, coming online in 1990s, early 2000s, and we had this energy around, what commercial application could there be with this new technology that was connecting all of us. And back then, we probably couldn't imagine that we'd have these little devices in our hand and we would be able to order, cars and food and clothes and whatever we want, and they could just show up at our house, right? So back in late 90s, early 2000s, we knew this was something interesting, but we didn't know how it was going to develop. I feel we're at a similar moment with artificial intelligence, which is there's clearly huge potential with this technology. There's also some quite serious risks. As a leader, how are you thinking about navigating and exploiting this technology while also being conscious of the risks that it comes with?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, to add to what you were saying, perhaps the additional point is the speed at which it has taken off compared to the other. And there has been an acceleration. What had happened during 2 years is probably the same that would have happened in 10 and previously in 50 years into this speed. I don't think any business leader today could think about the present and the future, but even the present without really integrating AI into the way he's thinking. So we took it as a group in a very serious manner, and we took it very early as a serious manner to encompass and to, I would say, try to get the best of the AI and also try to see what could be the danger and how at our level we could do it. We took it very seriously since now 2 years, and we are just at the beginning, but we started with them. So perhaps I can give some reflection about a few things which I have made. So the first point was education. We made sure that every one of our 16,000 team members had an initial induction course on AI. Every one of them had this induction course. It was a compulsory course in order to make sure that they all had at least the basic of what we are speaking about. Then we have tried to make sure that we could support some of the initiatives which were there by creating a cell with a head of AI in order to supporting all the different initiatives which we took, and we took them in many of the fields of the activity. The initial things which we did by taking those initiatives was about trying to get more efficient. So perhaps to treat at a faster pace and with less resources, more of the elements which we had. So it was really this drive for efficiency thanks to AI. But very quickly, and we'll give you example in a minute, but very quickly we said it's not only a question of efficiency, it could be something which gives much more added value, including to our customers, and first of all to our customer, and I'll give you 3 examples. And now we are more and more seeing that it could go much more further than this. It could help us innovate and create much more than anything else. So some of the initiatives which we took, and we took them in many of the different parts of it, and in a very decentralized manner, even if we had a center of expertise who continue helping, supporting, and developing the others, and also the educational part of it. So let's take our legal department. And again, our legal department, we had a lot of time, energy, and people just studying the contracts which we could do with our principals, with our supplier, with our client, with our developers. Today, by getting involved our AI into doing it, we can read it much faster, getting right to the point, and even getting, I would say, information about what else could be done, taking other examples which were happening, which was quite an efficient way and a better use of our resources. If we take our HR department, we were receiving for a particular job 1,000 applications. And we probably were reading, our team was reading 100 of them, and out of the 100, they would take the best 10 of them, and within the best 10, they would find the talent which we are looking for. Today, we are able to read the 1,000 in much less time, giving certain criteria with a pre-selection which is made, so the team can focus in order to read not 10, but probably 30 or 40, much more in depth, and making sure that we can treat much better number and making sure that we do it. If we take our supply chain, one of our challenges is to have the right product at the right moment into the right place. Today, we can make much stronger prediction than we could do as human, and in a much faster way, in order to try to have our fulfillment rate and our level of satisfaction have increased tremendously from something like 70% to 94%. So different possible initiatives. When it comes to our customer value, now we are using it in one of our digital site, but we will expand it even more. AI help. So if you go to one of our sites, which is a beauty site, and you try to ask for a product, the AI agent will come and help you and support you by asking a series of questions which could lead in order to give a much more wide advice, not about necessarily the product, but also what to use it, what should be used, etc., and the example of product, which could be there. So it's so much more engaging for our customer that we have seen the time spent on the site have doubled from 3 minutes to 6 minutes. The conversion rate has increased and the satisfaction rate has increased because of the advice which are given. But also it's always connected with the human touch after that. So it's not only about the AI component, which could give a much wider and deeper and faster answer. It's then how to take it and to turn it with the human connection which will be there. Another point, which we just launched in 2-3 days ago as an experimental, we have made our own site, our ChatGPT site, in accordance with ChatGPT, but proprietary for our group. It's called Alia. So with Alia, we'll be able to put all our data in order, without being worried that someone could steal those data, give it back, and have access to it. So if the customer enter our stores, hopefully in the future, it's like if you enter into a site, we could immediately be able to better recognize him, recognize his pattern, what are his preferences, and service him. If we were doing it manually, we'd never be able to do it, even with the digital help. Probably with the machine, if you are on the eSite, you could do it. So it will help us quite a lot in many of the applications to be able to get all our data and use them, keeping all this personalization. So honestly, it's mind-boggling. And we are just at the beginning, and our teams are very excited. But what we don't want to lose, it is, I would say, an element which is to help our people to get more efficient, better service. But we never want to lose the human touch, which we are keeping, and which give the warmth which we are giving, but with the help of a fantastic agent with AI.
Does it mean over the medium term that Chalhoub Group will employ fewer people because of some of the efficiencies you're finding? Or are you mostly using it to make your existing people more productive?
I mean, definitely we will have a gain of productivity. So we will have either the same number of people to do much more or less people to do what we are doing. But what we are trying to do, I would say, is always to develop our teams, to making sure that we reskill them in order to be able to adapt or to move a certain job. So not trying to avoid making redundancy by reskilling our people. or I would say skill them in other areas and other domains which are there. And then there is a natural movement. But what is sure, we will be much more efficient, giving much more value at a faster speed. But I would say some of the companies are using the AI really, and the mindset is to say, how can I reduce my costs, reduce my human people whom I'm using by using the AI, and it will happen, undoubtedly. But I think the bright way is to make sure that we upskill and reskill our people in order to make sure that they do it. And some are not motivated and leave the boat. Some are extremely motivated and very happy and satisfied that they are being able to be reskilled or upskilled in order to maintain them. But it's true that the use of our people becomes much more relevant than it was. So much less clerical job, much less time spent on things, and more time to think and to develop the human relation as well.
All right, Patrick, we have probably time for just one more question. And we have a lot of brand leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs operating fashion, luxury, beauty. You're coming to the kind of golden years of your career in this industry. I wonder if you have any wisdom to share around. I mean, the world is a crazy place. We're living in this time of huge technological disruption. There's geopolitical issues. There's conflict. There's war. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. As a leader, how do you advise people to build businesses, sustainable, profitable, strong businesses in an environment with this much disruption?
Yeah, so for me, I would have two pieces of advice, if you allow me. The first one, and it goes back with what Eli Saab was saying, is patience. Once you decide to do something, but I will add to it is patience and persistence, because you need to be patient and persistent. It doesn't come alone. You need to persist in what you are doing, and you need to rethink about yourself. And the other part, which really I believe in, is believe in yourself. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, and sometimes you stretch yourself and your capacity, then you will go nowhere. And a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, etc., have a lot of doubts, and we all have doubts. But if they don't believe in themselves, it's very difficult that they go further.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick. And please join me in congratulating and thanking Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you.